Welcome Sagittarius to your in-depth weekly forecast for week commencing the 17th of June for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now I'm showing your event chart right at the start of the week. And you can see there's a big cluster of energy still in your sector of relating house 7. And it's exciting. Jupiter, your ruler, is forging a great link with Mars, the planet of passion. But Mars is in your 6th house, which is about practicalities. It can be a bit more self-sacrificing there and may have given you a lift of energy since it moved there on the Sunday of the week before last. But it immediately clashed with Pluto. If you recall, the start of last week may have been quite highly charged. There may have been a lot of nervous energy. And if there was a situation where you feel that you've been very committed, tuning into other people's needs, giving of yourself in a very faithful way, but it hasn't seemed to have been recognised, that may have caused a lot of frustration. But as this week begins, Mars has moved away from that tension with Pluto, and that alliance with Jupiter is very dynamic. Your practical approach, Mars in the 6th, coupled with an ability to relate, listen and link, can really help you to take a step forwards. Also, the ruler of the 7th house is Venus. You can see that Venus is 29 degrees and 40 minutes, so it's just coming to the end of its journey through the sign of Gemini. And I'm really hoping that since it's been there, you have built some new alliances, new connections. It's also very close to the ruler of the sign of Gemini, Mercury, and they come into an exact unison on Monday. So a key conversation could be sparked early in this week. Maybe it's someone you've met over the weekend you're going to hear from again. Maybe it's someone that you've known longer, that you're building up a greater accord of understanding where each of you comes from. But that won't be the case if you experienced last week someone who really skews their approach to your emotional needs or your domestic needs or family needs, because Neptune and Saturn last week were really difficult. So if not every relationship ran smoothly in the last 7 days, it wouldn't be a surprise. One of the things that Neptune does is distorts, so we can think something is how it is, but actually it's not. So the key to overcoming that as you go into this new week is really making sure that your listening skills are really attuned. Try to appreciate carefully what people are saying, because your fears could come in. Your fears could cloud your conscious reality. But then, as Monday goes on, both Mercury and Venus move into the sign of Cancer. Cancer is very much about nurture. It's ruled by the moon. It's about security, but it's a powerful sign. It's a cardinal sign. Cardinality is very much about action. So then moving there, house 8, is really wanting to take the conversations of recent times and perhaps the pleasant interactions and make them something deeper and more long-lasting. But the converse can be true. If you found last week that there was such a muddle with one particular person, your instinct could be, with Mercury and Venus moving and forging a very powerful link to Pluto, to think and articulate a need to break free. Because the 8th house is where we can be very devoted, where they're moving in a spiritual sense, but it also can be where we can bring something to a close which we're not satisfied with. So there's been a lot of talk recently, perhaps some very bright conversations and very pleasing ones, but now you want to know if there's substance to someone's words. And because Saturn and Neptune last week did create quite a lot of resistance and tension around your emotional world, if someone seems to be very good at all the pleasantries but not very good on action, the chances are you will want to start to break free. And the Sun's arrival on Thursday in Cancer will help the process. This, of course, is the summer solstice, and this brings in cardinal quadrant 2, the second 13-week period of the astrological year. If you're down south, of course, this is the winter solstice. Western tropical astrology is a Mediterranean construct. And for you, the sun moving into house 8 really gives you a desire to get deep. Now, in a more practical way, the 8th house, and Venus, of course, is the planet of money, Mercury, the planet of transactions, so it's the merchant, if you like. Having them in the 8th house in a practical way can be terrific if you're more entrepreneurial. And if you have been developing an alliance with someone and it feels good, it could get deeper and more committed. But again, the converse can be true. But if you're not in any kind of relationship at the moment, don't be surprised if you start thinking more about things like life policies, investments, shares, savings, property and mortgage matters with this 8th house energy that's developing. Now, as we get to the end of the week, the sun gets into a quincunx with Pluto. So again, 3rd house energy, how we think quickly, 8th house energy, not necessarily obvious. It can be subterranean, it's deep. So there may be some dialogue. Is it going to be meaning for you? That's the question that you're asking. And that crests up with the full moon on Saturday. Over the next couple of weeks, if you are trying to reorganize your long-term finances, you still need to manage your short-term everyday budget, which is where the moon is in Capricorn, which is very practical. If, however, it's much more to do with a connection to someone, what you're wanting is a sharing of values, the 2nd house. If you don't get that chiming right, that could be a little bit of a prompt to think about maybe separating from something that doesn't quite work for you. But don't rush to any judgments, because Neptune is again potentially distorting things as this week draws to a close, and it is joining in with this particular full moon. So in sum, Sagittarius, something quite magical around a relationship could show up at the start of this week if there's been no emotional miscommunication or misunderstandings, or someone's not been putting a lot of their needs on you and you feel unheard or unseen. If you feel recognised, heard and nurtured, something can go from strength to strength, which is really exciting. Around your finances, this is a time to try to transform things. But also the 8th house can be our appreciation of the whole process of life and death. So a much more psychological phase of the year is opening up as this week goes on. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Have a great week. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you've yet to do so, please subscribe to the channel.